Welcome to the tutorial video to integrate your data with Google BigQuery in the Google Cloud Platform and connect it to the Boxalino data science ecosystem. In this tutorial video, we consider you have already completed the step 1, which is basically the setup of all of the services in the GCP, the Google Cloud Platform, that you will need, and that you have also completed step 2, which means that you have loaded at least some files into your Google bucket, into the Google storage. Let's first have a look at this and check how it should look in your Google storage before you start with this step 3. In this example, we have only loaded customers' data. The process to load products and transactions data is exactly the same and doesn't require any additional efforts in the step 3. Therefore, the process should be the same. Here we can see that we have done one load of the customer data in the Google storage with a specific date. Let's have a look at what these samples data look like. So here we can see that we have some very simple data with a few columns and a few rows. Again, the process with your data will be exactly the same. As soon as you have your data in the Google storage, you can start with the step 2 and put in place as a first step your VM instance. To create a virtual machine, go into the menu and select the Compute Engine menu. We can now create a new virtual machine simply by clicking on the Create button. Most of the parameters of the virtual machine can be left with the default values. The only parameters that need to be set specifically are first the region, which has to be set to Europe W1. Sorry, I meant Europe West 1. Then, secondly, we need to choose the machine type. For this type of process, usually a very small virtual machine is enough. Therefore, we're going to select a small machine. The G1 small should be enough. Finally, we need to define the service accounts that you have created in the first step to be automatically available in that virtual machine by selecting it in the drop-down. And that's it. Now we can create the virtual machine simply by validating this form. This virtual machine is now ready, and we can connect to it through SSH. Let's recap for a minute. So this virtual machine will be responsible to first create a script and to create the definition of the core tables. Your data are loaded as file in the Google storage, but then they need to be loaded into the stage with one table per file that you are loading. Therefore, the table will have the date indicated in the table name. And the data need to be consolidated in your core table, which by default will also have one table per type of files with, by default, the same column. The setup script, the configure script will generate for you automatically based on the data that you have, the files that you have loaded, these two scripts, the automation script that will run every day, as well as the initial creation of the core table SQL. So let's run the configuration script now, which first we have to copy from the document that you have received. We copy the configuration script, we go back to the virtual machine, and now we can create this configure.ch file. Now we open the file into an editor, and we simply paste the content which is provided in the document. We can now save it, and we can execute it. To execute it, we have to indicate the name of the client. We need to indicate the bucket in which we have loaded the files, and we have to provide the export definition. In the export definition, we need to indicate the list of the columns that we have in the CSVs, as you can see here. And now we execute the script. As we discussed before, this script created two files. One file, which we can now use to generate the core table structure of the BigQuery core dataset. So you can run the command to load these tables from that file. Of course, it is possible that you want to modify the file, to modify, for instance, the format of the column, and so on, before executing that command. Executing the command several times will simply replace the tables with the new structure. But let's look in BigQuery what it looks like. We can see here that we have the core dataset and the stage dataset. Currently, the stage dataset is still empty, but the core dataset has now the tables as per the process we just run. Let's look at this table that we have. There we can see that the table has been created with all of the same columns as we have in the CSV, as well as a few other automatically added columns. All of the columns from the CSV have the type string, which of course could be a good idea to change so that the true format of your data can be better reflected. This being said, it's optional and the process should work as long as you are following the step as provided. It is also important to consider that the system assumes that the first column of your CSV is the ID. In case it would not be so, you have to modify the process accordingly. Here we can see the internal ID is the first ID, which is exactly what we need for the process to work automatically. Now let's go back to the virtual machine and run the other process. As we discussed before, the configure script created two files. The SQL file creating the core table, which we just ran and checked what it did, and the process script. The process script is what should be run automatically every day. But let's try first to run it once manually. We put here the date, which corresponds to the load date we have in the Google storage, as per the file that we saw before. So the process has run now, as it should every day. Let's look at the results in BigQuery. First, if we look at the stage dataset, we can see that our run has gone through and that the data have been processed for that specific day. This table represents the data of the file as they were provided. Now let's look at the core table. The core table is of course still there with the same definition, but in addition, if we look at the preview, we have the actual consolidated data. Consolidated data means that if we would run the same process many times, or if several days would have partially the same data, the data would not be duplicated, only the different data would be kept. And this is here the example with the customer data, but as explained earlier, it will work automatically just as well with your transactions data and your product data. So now the last step is to automate the process so that we don't have to run it manually like we did, but instead that it is automatically running every day. So let's go back to the virtual machine. Let's open the Chrome tab, and now we can type the information. You can copy it directly from the documents as well. Now you can change the user variable to match your path in your virtual machine. You can now save the cron, and now you're all set. The process will run automatically. I hope that this tutorial video was helpful to show you the process of how to integrate your data in the Boxalino data science ecosystem. And we will be happy to support you further when you have questions if you contact us at Boxalino. Thank you for listening and have a good day.